How often do you find yourself exactly where you want to be? My happy place? The mountains. The high Sierra. Crisp and blue and preferably blanketed in snow. Now you will have to get up a mountain, slog through ski gear. But when you see that mountain, get on the first lift of the day, bluebird skies and pixie dust blowing off pine needles, there's nothing like it. Ski up to a ridge, peek down, butterflies, pick your line. And it don't matter if you're 5 or 15 or 50. It's scary and exciting, and at some point, you're gonna have to drop in. Man, when I hit it right, speed and vision, the perfect union of action, destiny, and I'm exactly where I want to be. Hey everybody, I am Freddie J, and you are listening to the premiere episode of the Crypto Cabin Podcast. All right, here it is. A little over a year ago, my family and I jumped into the wagon and headed to the mountains. As we were getting out of town, I turned to my wife and I said, hey, I'm thinking about studying real estate, maybe getting licensed or maybe even developing a piece of property. Now, I was expecting her to turn to me and go,
oh, hell no!
But instead, she said,
that's a great idea. I think you'd be great at that.
Knew I married her for a reason. I ski, my kids snowboard, and my wife she just digs nature. And while I'm definitely trying to maintain a certain amount of anonymity, the show that I'm hoping to put together does rely on a few things. Passion, curiosity, and honesty. And the truth is, I fell in love with the High Sierra. Probably because my first stop was Tahoe, but there's so much of it. There's Tahoe and Mammoth and Big Bear and Arrowhead and Baldy, and that's not including all the areas up by Yosemite and the Redwood Forest. I mean, it's unbelievably beautiful. And so since that little talk back in February, what did I do? Well, a bunch of stuff, actually. I sold everything I had pretty much in the stock market. I refied the house, and I bought a 12,000 square foot lot up in the mountains. We hired an architect, a geologist to do soil samples, make sure our lot was buildable. We got a survey and a topo done to map the property, and after about 8 months of begging, contractors found one seemingly reasonable contractor who agreed to get us a bid. I suppose this is the part of the show where I should tell you that this is not financial advice. And the reason for that is probably because I've made just about every bad move in the book. And luckily, I've made just enough good ones to survive somehow. But in the course of this last year, we've gone from things a little bit dicey a year after the pandemic to the worst inflation in 50 years, a big adjustment in the stock market, a supply chain that's an absolute disaster, and being on the cusp of World War III in Europe. All right, things are looking up. Meanwhile, the world's first and only decentralized store of value has been building and reimagining money right in front of my face, and I sleep on it. It's not like I didn't know about Bitcoin. Started watching it at 1,000. We hit 1,000. But my dive down the Bitcoin rabbit hole really starts about 18 months ago with Max and Stacy. Bless their hearts. Find a bunch of their old videos. They turn me on to Saifedean, and I read, or more accurately, listen to the Bitcoin Standard. Then I go ahead and just read Satoshi's white paper. Find Peter McCormack and What Bitcoin Did. Bravo, sir. Excellent podcast. His guest list is too long to list, but that's my Bitcoin 101. Saylor, Foss, Samson Mao, Marty Bent, and the brilliant, beautiful, and incredibly talented Lynn Alden. And they've all got me convinced that Bitcoin is the soundest money ever created. And just might change the world. A digital, decentralized store of value, incoercible, immutable on the blockchain, and best of all, finite. No money printer go burr. You can't just push a button and create it. Guaranteed scarcity as we move into this most uncertain digital future. Imagine value that can be moved anywhere in the world. No, anywhere, period, at the speed of light, without ever needing approval from a government or a bank. Sold. I'm convinced. And so, it should come as no surprise that property, philosophy, and the future of money is the pitch line for this podcast. What I'm hoping you guys can help me with is a question that has been rattling around my brain for the past year and a half. How does the world's oldest asset, land and property, merge with its newest, Bitcoin? Truth is, I have no idea. But here's what I do know. Developing property takes cash. The dollar is in trouble. And contractors do not accept Bitcoin. Not yet, anyway. So around the time I bought the land last year, I started stacking sats. I think we were just off the high. Bitcoin was around 50K, and I wasn't going to get too bold. I set up a dollar cost averaging account for $100 a week over the next year. But that couldn't be enough. Like a million mooks before me, I was going to be a smart guy. I couldn't just buy the dips or build the position slowly. Nope. I was going to figure out a way to game Bitcoin. At that point, the Chinese miners had just come offline, and I started to understand what the block reward was And I decided I was going to invest in Bitcoin mining in the stock market. So after having sold everything out, all my standard sort of corporate stuff, liquidating a portion of my retirement to buy the land, I went back in and I bought Bitcoin stocks. Now, 6 months ago when I started thinking about this podcast, I was a genius. Those stocks had doubled, one of them and tripled. 6 weeks ago, I was even. Today, I'm down more than half in both of them. Bitcoin's down pretty close to 50% as well. Not quite from when I started buying, but definitely 50% off its high. Truth is, don't care. Still stacking. Bought a little bit more of the mining. I got to sit on that for now because I got to see what happens. We're going to get to that. Hang tight. Back to the podcast. It's going to be separated into those three things: property, philosophy, and the future of money. Not necessarily in that order. But let's start with the future of money. And I want to come at this looking into Bitcoin itself as something that very well may be the future of money. Okay, so what do I want to discuss? Proof of work versus proof of stake. Proof of stake, in my mind, most basically seems to be those who have the money and the power, well, we'll let them set the consensus and the ways. Proof of work seems like a great idea to push any entity forward, but specifically energy, and we'll get into that in a minute. Let's hold that there. So I want to talk about the block reward and mining, understand that better. All of this is going to be from a layman's perspective, right? From a noob's perspective. By the way, not a boomer, probably be accused of it. Gen X, our generation has been screwed. We haven't controlled anything, and we've inherited this boomer mess. So think of it like that. All right, so, okay. Energy, FUD. Now, the millionaires that Max and Stacy and Saifedean and all these early adopters may have minted may be completely familiar with the FUD, but I'm just getting it. I'm just seeing it now, the fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD, right? And as far as energy is concerned, we are in a world where commodities are going to be scarce again. And energy production, distribution, electrification, pulling natural gas and oil out of the ground is going to be very, very important over the next several years. Possibly even to the point of a destabilizing thing. But what I think people are missing here is that Bitcoin pushing electrification and the energy grid forward single-handedly guarantees energy production is forced to be upgraded into the 21st century. I mean, at the end of the day, there are a lot of ways to make electricity, and they're getting better and better all the time. Fuel and gas, they come out of the ground, period. And who are the top nation states that really rely on that stuff to bolster their economy besides us? Russia, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela. How am I doing? Sound like fun? Ready for a vacation there? Bitcoin pushes the energy industry and the electrification of our world into the future. If you track human progress on any metric whatsoever, the cleaner, more abundant, cheaper the energy for each individual human over time, the better your quality of life is. Want to start chopping wood down again to boil water? I doubt it. Okay? Using energy is good. Yes, of course, we want to use clean sources, but using energy is good. And Bitcoin helps that. It provides stabilizing market forces to push the entire grid forward. And all the FUD and all the fear about, we're going to boil the oceans is the exact opposite of what's going to happen. This is just my opinion. We need to hear from experts who can refute or back up this assertion, and they will absolutely be on this show sometime in the near future. We will do a whole episode on that, on electricity, on energy on the grid, and how mining and Bitcoin affects that. That's new money. What about old money? We can't talk about new money without really taking a look at the old money. And the old money is the dollar, the US dollar, the greenback. And unfortunately, the dollar's in some trouble right now. And I think the unipolar moment is over. There is so much history in the dollar. We have to talk about coming off the gold standard around Bretton Woods in the early 70s, which Nixon did, versus modern monetary theory and fiat money printer go Burr, sort of the Federal Reserve's creation of money, and actually what the dollar is, even going beyond the fact that every barrel of oil ever traded over time since I believe it was the late 70s, was traded in dollars, which gave us the ability to be the reserve currency of the world. Just looking at it from the idea of fiat currency, which is a fancy way of saying money printer go Burr, to a commodities pegged currency. What the difference is, what that means, what the unipolar world of the hegemony of the dollar means as it fades, what comes in its place. It could be Bitcoin, but it might not be. It might be something else. So we'll talk about that. Now, I think it's important here to point out that I'm not betting on Bitcoin because I don't like the dollar. The dollar for people in my generation was incredibly helpful. It was wonderful to make dollars. I was able to get out of college without a ton of debt. I believe my tuition in 1990 was $850 for up to 21 credits in a state college, state university. I don't think that exists anymore, but there were advantages to the dollar for many people in many generations, and I think Bitcoin is the only chance to rein in the excesses of the Federal Reserve and our politicians and their, let's call it, irresponsible use of our currency, what it meant to our production capacity and our manufacturing capacity, what it meant to our buying power. I mean, there are a lot of things to look at in the dollar before we abandon it. And the truth of the matter is, if Bitcoin is successful the way I see it, it may rein in the excesses of the dollar and force it to be more responsible. I mean, you can't print trillions of dollars and shut the economy down and not expect some sort of inflation. That's just not realistic. And all these unfunded liabilities are either going to have to be cut or paid, or we default. There are no other options. And it's a really fascinating time for the dollar, not to mention everything from cutting off Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over in Russia from the SWIFT payment system, all the way to the possible donation of a few bucks to the truckers in Canada. Central banks have the ability to shut you off at any point. Your dollars, for the most part at this point, they're ones and zeros in an antiquated freaking mainframe supercomputer from the 1960s. I mean, it's an old system. It's a very old system, and it's not adopting quickly to the 21st century. And while I confess I don't own any shitcoins right now, except for the dollar, but I'm not saying I won't, because I don't really understand most other cryptocurrencies, and I'd like to figure out a little bit more, especially as it relates to things like smart contracts. I'm intrigued. I feel like in real estate, there has to be some type of connection where the world's oldest asset would merge with its newest. It seemingly would be a match made in heaven with things like titles, meets and bounds, escrow, contingencies on contracts and trusts or the release of funds. These things seem like they're built for these quote unquote ERC20 based smart contracts. Maybe they can be built in Bitcoin. I'm not sure. I'm too dumb. I'm too thick to understand it. I mean, I'm an old man.
Okay, boomer.
Where do these stable coins fit in? I'm sure we're all sort of reeling from this Luna Terra mess, and a lot of people got wrecked and rug pulled, and thank heavens I didn't do any of that nonsense. But there's got to be a place for these stable coins, I would think, either pegged to another currency or a commodity, but something that would take some of the volatility out of owning, say, Bitcoin or any other digital currency for that matter. We'll discuss that. Back to Bitcoin itself. Digital gold versus digital currency. As a store of value, Bitcoin seems like a no-brainer, to me anyway. But as far as commerce is concerned, jury's still out on that. People going to actually buy things with Bitcoin? Because we know on the main blockchain, transactions are just too cumbersome to do sort of high volume, millions and millions of transaction on the main chain. But the layer 2's got some real possibilities. I'm excited about the Lightning Network. And one of the episodes will definitely be dedicated to setting up a Lightning node, opening up some channels. There's going to be a lot of cursing in that one because I'm not the most technically savvy person.
Okay, boomer.
But I got some merch. Yeah, that's a hint what it is. Don't get too excited. Low cost. See if I can't get some sats moving around the Lightning Network and get supporters of this incredible podcast to participate by doing commerce on the Lightning Network. Stay tuned on that. Property. Property can be tricky. There's no doubt. And it's a fine line sometimes between you owning, quote unquote, controlling things or things owning, or more accurately, controlling you, right? I've been thinking a lot about property lately. Primarily because it's based on debt most of the time, but especially with, everything that's going on in the world right now. I mean, how much good would owning a piece of land do you if you lived in Kharkiv right now? My family knows what that's like. I have a European history where all my family's property was gone in a matter of months, and they were on the run. Did them no good. Can Bitcoin as digital property alleviate some of that? Maybe. That's another whole thing. But let's stick with hard property, real estate and land. And my family owned a general store in the 1930s on the Austrian-Hungary border. And then it was gone, and they were on the run. That kind of property can be seized. And we've seen this over and over again throughout history. Very difficult to take property with you when you're on the run. on the other hand, the beautiful thing about property is it's the physical places where life happens. In backyards, in kitchens, on decks, conference rooms, restaurants, friends, family, colleagues, humans of all stripes coming together in physical places to make things happen, to make memories, right? And yeah, you only hear the horror stories, but the reality is real estate takes vision, engineering, timing. In theory, building something can be fun. Designing definitely is. I can vouch for that straight up. We worked with a super talented designer architect, and I can say unequivocally that the conceptualizing, modeling, and tweaking a structure, a home, an idea from the ground up is awesome. There's at least a few episodes in there. The Airbnb revolution. Our family has stayed in at least a half dozen beautiful mountain cabins, lofts and decks and jacuzzis and crawl spaces, and just, we know what works. And what was once a landscape completely monopolized by large hotel chains and a handful of cabin colonies and vacation companies is now at the hands of anybody who owns a second home. Sometimes first homes. People go and move in with their spouses and Airbnb their old place, right? It's not easy. I don't think it's easy, but it is a revolution to what the vacation industry is. Oh, you know what they had before Airbnb? They had timeshares. Oh, what a scam that stuff was. But, they still sell those, and I guess some people like them, and it might force you into taking a vacation when you realize how much you're spending on the thing. But the reality is the Airbnb revolution is something that's just been amazing. We've enjoyed it. Prices had gone up during the pandemic in the mountain towns, I'll tell you that. But the reality is it's a really wonderful way to, cook your meals, not live 4 people in a single hotel room, even if the cabins are small, which we have really enjoyed a lot of, like 700-800 square foot ones with just a loft and a bedroom. They're awesome. They're cute little places with kitchens and smart TVs and hot tubs nestled in the mountains. And this revolution goes kind of hand in hand with, like, investing. All this talk about the metaverse and the virtual world we're about to inhabit. What about the idea that Bitcoin is digital property? As for other assets like homes, home ownership, which tends to be the single largest asset for most Americans, I believe, we take for granted that those assets go up when home values and home prices go up, that's good. Unless, of course, you're a first-time buyer, like, say, a college graduate with a shit ton of debt on his back, or someone just getting into the workforce, or an entrepreneur whose business is finally starting to make some money. For them, it's not great that starter homes are $1 million. And our country has been on a drunken spending binge for the better part of the last 2 decades, largely fueled by low interest rates and easy money. And a few things happen when you put interest rates down to zero. You get asset inflation, so the values of homes can go up because it's cheaper to finance them. You get stocks and crypto and other assets go up because a lot of times people are using borrowed or leveraged money to buy them. And don't kid yourself. Companies aren't immune to this either. Rates go up for them. They just start raising prices or laying people off. You do not need to be an economic journalist or a Nobel Prize winning economist to understand that if China is welding doors shut and your workforce here in America is moving from offices, small businesses, and collaborative workspaces to their garage, you're going to lower productivity. You dump trillions of dollars onto that you just pushed the button and created. Now you've got more money chasing fewer goods and services. And now you've just inflated the bubble and compounded the problem even more. This is an article from Bloomberg yesterday. The headline reads, "Zombie firms face slow death in U.S. as era of easy credit ends," by Lisa Lee. Quote, "They are creations of easy credit, beneficiaries of central bank largesse, and now that the era of unconventional monetary policy is over, they're facing a challenge like never before. They are America's corporate zombies, companies that aren't earning enough to cover their interest expenses, let alone turn a profit, from meme stock favorite AMC Entertainment Holdings to household names such as American Airlines and Carnival Corp. Their ranks have swelled in recent years, comprising roughly a fifth of the country's 3,000 largest publicly traded companies and accounting for about $900 billion of debt. Now, some say their time may be running short." Nearly $1 trillion of debt, much of which I'd like to point out didn't go to make their businesses better or raise wages, but to give corporate heads bonuses and do stock buybacks. More asset inflation. It continues a couple paragraphs down. Firms that could once count on virtually unfettered access to the bond and loan markets to stay afloat are being turned away as investors girding for a recession close the spigot to all but the most credit-worthy issuers. The fortunate few that can still find willing lenders face significantly higher borrowing costs as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to tame inflation of more than 8%. With surging input costs poised to eat away at earnings, it's left a broad swath of corporate America with little margin for error. The end result could be a prolonged stretch of bankruptcies unlike any in recent memory. So what does that mean? That means more price increases. That means more job losses ultimately. And some of these companies are just going to go away. They're just going to fold. Now, the article goes on to discuss what's happening with corporate bonds. That market's been hammered already. And I'm worried. I'm really worried. Because we built all this whole crazy corporate asset inflated economic world and workforce. We've created it all on debt. Debt is fine when you're actually building something or creating value, adding services and products that make the world a bigger, better place, that provide value. But when it's debt for stock buybacks and CEO bonuses to keep your zombie company rolling, that's no good. You know, I've heard Guy Swan of the Bitcoin Audible podcast explain it like this. We've essentially created a world where all of our assets are built on or predicated on someone else's liability. And I'm not sure how much longer we can keep blowing that bubble up. I mean, we're at 20 trillion, 30 trillion. I don't even know. The numbers are staggering. But the same problem that these corporations face, which is essentially they can't earn enough money to cover their interest cost, very realistically could be the problem that our federal government faces. We're running huge deficits and unfunded liabilities. Yeah, scary. And I'm sorry if I've been depressing you for the last 10 minutes. But here's the good news. There's no reason why Bitcoin can't do for money what the digital revolution and the internet have done for content creation, for commerce, for the spread of ideas and information, and for giving the average person the tools to compete in the world on a fairly level playing field. All right, it's $30,000 and it's expensive, but it's decentralized, a financial computational network that's completely immutable and not subject to the whims of some maniac or politician in Washington, D.C. who decides, let's make 1 trillion more of those. Guaranteed scarcity, immutable, unconfiscatable, the most sound money ever created. There's this saying that new Bitcoiners tend to gravitate to. Fix the money and you fix the world. I don't know if Bitcoin fixes the world. I'm not sure how it would affect these bad actors in finance or the blood-soaked monsters who claim to have our best interests at heart. But maybe Bitcoin doesn't have to fix the world. Maybe fix the money and you fix the world is a stretch. Maybe it just fixes the economy, or better yet, reins in the irresponsible and quite frankly ghoulish behavior that is crushing our dollar. In this world where so many of the institutions seem like they are teetering, so much of the messaging around us says tear it all down. I don't want to tear it down. I want to build on some of the greatest foundations ever conceived of, especially as it relates to the nation state. Individual liberties and freedoms guaranteed, the consent of the governed, property rights, all for the greater good. Bitcoin is a way to build. Bitcoin is building an entire new infrastructure for global finance. You gotta find hope where you can. And we're gonna do that on this podcast. We are. As for the thing I wanted to build, let's call it the crypto cabin. when this whole thing started about a year ago, we had a 1,200 square foot A-frame in mind. Pretty simple, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a loft. We'll definitely do an episode on A-frames. We budgeted about $275 a square foot and another $50,000 to $60,000 to finish off our architecture and engineering, get the hookups, water and electric, and furnishings. Where we wound up was an 1,800 square foot A-frame with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a loft, and an upper deck with peekaboo mountain views that would just be amazing. The perfect spot for a hot tub. And oh yes, let's not forget the most screwed up supply chain and highest inflation in 50 years. Call me crazy. I still want to build. I want to build the best damn Airbnb in the High Sierra. I do. A modern, funky take that combines a little bit of maybe Scandinavian or European and modern touches with old-timey Western mountain cabin. I think it'd be great. And yeah, I know it's a weird time to be rent-seeking, to be pro-capitalism, to want to make money owning something, creating something. But it's not going to be someplace I winter in a few weeks a year and then it stays dormant the rest of the time. It's someplace I'd actually like to share. Yeah, making money, it's not exactly sharing. I get it. But sharing. I daydream about good times with family and friends and beers on decks and ski runs with my kids. But I'd like to see complete strangers make their own memories. Discover the wilderness. Why not? If the last 2 years of COVID has showed me anything, it's that we live in a beautiful world and you better get out and go enjoy it while you can. Alright, so this does seem like the perfect place to leave our premiere episode. Because when I turn off this mic, I'm going to go open an email I've been sitting on for about 6 or 7 weeks. Might even be 2 months now at this point. It's from that contractor I mentioned earlier in the show. And we're going to take a look at what this is going to cost to build. But no matter the number, it's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. This build, this podcast, this digital future for our currency, these things are gonna happen. As for the physical world and the bits of Mother Nature that I just cherish more and more the older I get, the reality is, being in the mountains or outdoors in general, it's more like romance. You don't really own it. You're in it. It's like falling in love. It's beautiful, and when it's fresh, it's amazing and exhilarating. And when you're in the groove, you're in the groove. But make no bones about it. It gets stormy and scary, and people can get hurt, real hurt. So cherish the time you get. Daydreaming is great, but being present is even better. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Freddie J. We'll see you next time.